So within 2 weeks, I managed to pull up hopefully a pretty good presentation here. I'll do my best to keep it brief, but it's something I feel strongly about, so I may just rant on. If you have any questions, just go ahead and direct message Jill if you can, so that I'm not distracted by the stuff that's popping up on the side of the screen. So looking at, as of noon yesterday, looked like we had 1,888,906 cases. My guess is we're a little closer to 2 million today. Iowa had 1,587 cases, and Lynn County 258. And we were, I believe we still are, one of the highest number counties right now in Iowa. So how mental health is going to be impacted by COVID. This is not something any of us have ever dealt with before. So we don't know a direct facts. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we know that stress affects mental health. And this is a prolonged, intense, and indefinite stress. So a poll that was given about a month ago, only 1,000 adults really in the United States. Most people, the majority of people, said they were somewhat or extremely concerned about COVID, which I think is definitely relevant. We have to watch because pre-existing mental health conditions and substance use, they're exacerbated by stress. This is stress. So anyone who has a history of depression, anxiety, any mental health problem, as well as drug abuse or alcoholism, this is going to be exacerbated by the stress. You pair with this financial and economic insecurity. People are losing their jobs. People are out of work. You can't get toilet paper anywhere for some reason. This makes people stressed out. Add with that the fear of safety for self and others. And this just isn't COVID. I'm hearing from my first responder friends, clients, domestic violence is through the roof right now. Child abuse is going to be going up. When you add stress with being home 24/7, this is going to make these conditions, these instances more frequent. Add with this as well, pre-existing medical conditions, high-risk populations, they're going to be more in fear for themselves, or if they know people who have these problems, more in fear for them. And then pair with that having children home 24/7, you know, we've definitely gained a new appreciation for daycare providers and teachers throughout the whole process here. I know I have. You can't just lock the kids in a room for 8 to 5 and hope to get your work done. They need time, they need attention. They're dealing with their own issues throughout this. That's going to take, you know, definitely take a toll on a person. We don't have any buffers for this stress either. We have no extracurricular activities now. Bowling leagues are closed. You can't do bags leagues. There's no volleyball. There's none of this that we're able to continue to do. So there goes one of the coping mechanisms that we all had, paired with grief. And it's not just grief of death. It's not losing a loved one. It can be grief of a job, of losing the lifestyle that you used to have, of not being able to see your friends, you know, of financial security, of plans that you had. People are losing their businesses. So all of that compared, you know, how is this going to affect your business? Research shows time and time again that increased stress is going to impact the quality of your work. Stress impacts an entire person's system. They're not going to be their best in any situation if they're under prolonged stress. This is just, there's stress in so many areas, paired with abrupt changes. So people are all of a sudden, you know, I'm going to work on a Friday and on Monday I find out that I have to telecommute. So there's changes in work dynamics. And then confusion, like how is my workload supposed to be the same? Is it going to be different? There may be job insecurity, which inevitably is going to affect how they perform at work. You know, there's also an increase in drug and alcohol consumption right now, and I'm hearing this across the country, is our alcohol consumption for sure is through the roof. And that is going to affect the quality of work. I'm a part of a couple of beer groups on Facebook, and I can't tell you how many times I see people posting pictures of themselves with a beer next to their laptops. People are drinking at work because they have no one watching them, and that's obviously going to affect the quality of their job or of their work. Then there's the relationships and distance. Every manager has a different managing style. Some of them are better face-to-face because they're visible, they're present, they're able to check in, they have this face-to-face relationship. when you rip that away and it moves into a more, I'm checking in through Skype or I'm checking in through Zoom, they're not present all the time. That can affect the relationship with your employees. It can affect the relationship with your investors, your customers. There's distance now, and we're needing to find ways to bridge that gap. And then also the expectation that there's going to be an increase in absenteeism. People are going to get sick, and people are going to have loved ones that get sick. I see a lot of healthcare providers, and what I'm hearing is these people are in the hospital. I believe it's an average of 6 to 7 days, but that's just part of the illness. They still have the initial week before or the couple of weeks afterwards. So the absenteeism is going to be prolonged. Pair with this that telecommuting is very unfamiliar for a lot of people. Now, this 2019 survey, this was remote tech workers. 82% said they felt burnt out. So burnout would be, it manifests differently in different people. The way that I've seen it, it can be anger, it can be a lack of motivation, it can be a numbness or a flat affect. It can be, absenteeism at work. It can be, errors that originally were not made. 52% of people reported working longer hours than in office, which is going to burn you out. And then 40% said they felt they needed to work harder and do more than their in-office colleagues, possibly because they felt that they needed to prove that their job, telecommuting, was as important as in office. So these are people who chose and knew that they were going to be telecommuting. Now, all of a sudden, you have all of these Americans who just now were just like, okay, you're telecommuting. So you're going to have a mixed reaction. Some people with, especially with pre-existing mental health conditions, they may improve or they may worsen. I've noticed that people who have social anxiety, for example, they're actually doing very well right now. They don't have all these social engagements. They don't have to network. They don't have to attend meetings. They're doing great. But there are people that I've noticed that are not doing super well, especially people who are prone to depression. They're isolated. And so with that, research is showing that isolation can be twice as harmful to physical and mental health as obesity. And then about 20% of telecommuters reported feeling like that. They were isolated or lonely. And so that's, at least 1/5 of people who are just not, and these are people choosing to, are not doing well with it. I have to make note of the introverts versus the extroverts. This isn't, I don't think, researched yet, but this is very interesting that I'm noticing. Introverts seem to be handling this quarantine thing very well. A lot of their hobbies that give them energy are solo hobbies. They like to go for walks and run and read books and watch movies. This is great for them. Extroverts, however, I'm noticing are not doing so well. Because they gain their energy from social interaction. They gain their energy being out, and this is very new and very difficult for them. So just kind of keep an eye and maybe just observe your own employees, and how the introverts versus the extroverts seem to be handling this transition. I noticed in the attendance list, there were a couple people who are related or working with essential workers. I feel like this is very important to note. Essential work, I work with a lot of essential workers. I'd say probably most of my telehealth clients are essential workers. And I'm seeing this, lots of red flags as a trauma therapist. They're having this continuous potential exposure to COVID, and it sits in the back of the mind, and it goes and it goes. So it's affecting their physical health. It's affecting their mental health. There is this continuous fear for self and loved ones. Am I making my kids sick? Should I be living in a different space? Could I have it and be affecting my employees, especially with nurses and doctors? It's do no harm. Am I doing harm? It's leading, I've even seen like survival guilt is coming up. Health, I'm going to say this for certain, healthcare providers are going to have an increased rate of PTSD and mental health disorders after this is all said and done. Because you're getting these long hours, it's less than ideal working conditions. There's no certainty, things are constantly changing. They're dealing with very acute patients. There's also, I have friends of mine that they're living in tents next to their house because they don't want to expose their kids. And then there's the public reactivity. Friends and clients of mine who are first responders and law enforcement, they're seeing such an increase in mental health calls and domestic violence. And many of you know, with law enforcement, one of the most dangerous calls they get is domestic violence calls. So they're putting themselves at risk while also trying to maintain social distancing and keep themselves safe. And then there's the treatment by public, which is very sad, but I hear it more and more. You get nurses, doctors, they're wearing perhaps a sweatshirt that has the logo of Mercy or Unity Point, and they're getting at least verbally assaulted while in stores, accused of spreading the disease, accused of lying, accused of covering things up, accused of not helping people. And it's sad, it's not right. But just notice that if you're working with these essential workers, they're at risk already. So now we're moving into like the general preparedness. I hope that many of you have already started moving towards these things. But starting initially, I absolutely recommend identifying a workplace coordinator. This person is going to be responsible for communicating and coordinating these changes. It makes it easier for everyone to say, oh, you go to this person for that, or this person, and let the main person handle, I need to check with this person, this person, this person. If you take one thing away from this, I hope it's that you take away, look into if telehealth and mental health is covered in your insurance policy. And keep note of that and share it with your employees. Is EAP, is there an EAP? Many insurance companies have worked with legislation, and they're getting telehealth approved when it was not previously. So definitely call and check. There's the OSHA guidance. I definitely recommend businesses check with that. There's a PDF available online that has all of this information. And then network with other businesses, chambers of commerce and associations, and create a unified plan. I mean, honestly, Uptown Marion has done a fantastic job with this. It's really amazing to see everyone's on the same page. And, the Chamber of Commerce, I believe, created a Facebook group for all of the restaurants and locally that do curbside delivery, and it's really, I think, great for these businesses and Marionites to see who's available and giving these businesses their money. Now, leaders are going to make or break here the business's transition to and from. Your leaders need to maximize trust and minimize stress, and so you do that by managing your own stress and leading by example. So showing people, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be off at 4 o'clock today. I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to spend some time with my family. It gives almost permission for your employees to also engage in stress management techniques. You're sharing this information, hey, we have to suspend business operations, or we've moved to only Zoom meetings now. And communicating this early and with empathy and optimism. And that's not the same as false optimism. So for an example, empathy and optimism. Hey, we're going to suspend our business operations beginning on Monday. This will occur for approximately 2 weeks. We will revisit. I know it's difficult. I know if there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to ask. We'll keep you guys in the loop about what's going on. It's different than saying, hey, we had to lay off 10 people, but I mean, what are you going to do? We'll be all right. I don't believe the second one. I more believe the first one. It's the credibility that you're using. You're building trust. You're saying you understand the risks and the ramifications of your decisions. You're not claiming to know all of the answers. And you're providing this regular communication. While you can't be visibly present, you're working hard to be at least present through phone calls, through Zoom meetings. You're showing them, hey, I'm here with you. I'm in the trenches too, but we can get through this. Now with this, the managing stress, and this is something I encourage you to share with your employees. I mean, this is something I talk to all of my clients about anyway. Research consistently shows social media consumption is just bad for you. It creates a sense of loneliness. It can increase depression, body dysmorphia. I mean, there's a wide range of things that can come from too much social media exposure. And right now, more than ever, we're probably consuming a lot of social media. We don't know. There's so much uncertainty. We're looking for answers. So we're sometimes looking in less reputable places to get information. Psychologists, they're recommending that you limit yourself to social media and news 1 to 2 times per day in less than 10 minutes at a time. I definitely don't recommend doing it before bed because you'll just get yourself worked up. I try to look right away in the morning, and I look again approximately at noon. And I do that just more to look up scientific information. What are the numbers? What are they noticing? Rather than looking up like these news articles that are designed to grab attention and to scare you rather than to provide you with factual information. Doing what you can to protect yourself, your family, and your community. Washing your hands, wearing a mask if you have one, not going out if not necessary, checking on your elderly neighbors, providing, okay, I'm going to go do, I think a while ago they had some mask building things that they were doing where it was still social distancing, but helping to give back to the community, and, buying local if possible. Definitely trying to focus on what you are grateful for, not what you want to change, because there's a lot of things we would probably all want to change, but we're not sitting here focusing on what we're grateful for, the things that are going well. Absolutely accessing use of telehealth. It's a lot like what we're doing here, but in a different platform. Apps for de-stressing your phone at the Apple App Store. They have all of these apps that have, guided meditations and breathing exercises and progressive muscle relaxation. Just use those. Encourage your employees to use those. They have YouTube videos for yoga and breathing and all of these things. You wouldn't think it, but probably one of the more common things that I have to teach people to do as a therapist is how to breathe properly, which seems really weird, but we breathe wrong. And that is where a lot of anxiety and stress comes from. So I usually teach my clients the 4-7-8 breathing, which is very simple. Hold, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And then just do that several times over. And then after a few times, you're hijacking your system here. You're calming yourself down. Your breathing is regulated, your heart rate is slower, and you're able to make conscious present choices. As much as you can, attempt to maintain a routine. Eat healthy, don't smoke, exercise, the self-care thing, and then use the time to safely reconnect to others. Check in on old friends, write letters, send videos to your elderly loved ones. There was a nursing home, I believe it was in Marion, that was asking for, provided an address and asked for kids to write letters to the residents. That is a great way of giving back and creating connection to others. So moving into working remotely, there's a lot of various things that people didn't have. I mean, when you're in a telecommute, there's a training that moves into it, but when you're just kind of thrown into it, we don't really know what to do. So we talk about what they call an ideal workspace, and an ideal, okay, but if you can, boundaries are so important here. Creating a workspace that is separated from noise and chaos, with a door preferably that can close. If you've got kids, also lock. Consider using headphones, noise canceling ones. Definitely talk with your family members. Establish common quiet hours, breaks. Let people know your schedule so they know when to expect you, if they should come get you. Communicating when it's appropriate to interrupt your work. Don't come at me to have an app approved. Wait, if my door is closed, that means don't come in, and definitely shut off news and social media notifications. So with the boundaries, try to separate your workstation from frequented areas. If not, it creates too much of a temptation. Your email goes off and you go, oh, I could respond to this really quick. So you just go log in, and then it's another email, and that's another email, and then it's a document. And then by the time you know it, it's 2 hours later and you have to go to bed. Definitely consider dressing as if you're normally going to work. It helps the brain kind of get into work mode, and then absolutely keep alcohol away from the workspace unless it's allowed by your employer for like a company-wide happy hour or something like that. So the ideal work day, try to adjust your work schedule. I mean, it's not going to look, hopefully, it will look the same, but it may not look the same as it did when you were in office. So try to adjust your schedule to times when you can complete most of the most important stuff, and then focus. So early mornings, like for an example, I get the most work done. So I will create a list, and I will star the things that I have to get done right away. And I will do that right away in the morning. So those are my must-do tasks, and I do those first. If I need, if you're in a company where it's very much, there's a lot of communication going on, if you need to work late or early and you're taking time off during the daytime, let people know, hey, I'm going to work late tonight, but I'm not going to be available between 2 and 4, so that way you're not getting pulled back in. Be flexible, but obviously you have to have expectations for yourself and as well as your employees, and they need to be communicated. Again, the communication is the key here. When you're present face-to-face, communication is a lot easier. When you're distant, you may think you're communicating enough, but emails, instant messaging, there's a lot missed. So leaders need to establish, clear communication patterns initially. How frequently are you checking in? How often? What method? using synchronous methods, video calls, phone calls. I think those are generally the best ones because you're actually interfacing with someone rather than just Skyping them or sending them a text. And then clearly communicating expectations. I've had a couple businesses that I've talked to who have moved to basically at 8 a.m. they would have a Zoom meeting or team I'm doing today, here's what I need from you today. It was, just like you would in the office. And that I think created a good starting point for the day. People knew what they needed to do. They knew who they needed to reach out to. And then leaders definitely have to have this open door policy. If you need anything, I can help you transition. If you need any you have questions, just feel free to reach out at any time. And then consider using non-work related connections for employees. And many companies will, on a Friday at 4, they go and they go happy hour. So you can do that still, but it would have to be through FaceTime in places where they would have lunch together via Zoom or coffee breaks or the water cooler check-ins. And I think those are great ways of maintaining a less business-like connection, but also keeping hold of that relationship that people have. So the daily checklist for communication is important. And, keep this with you. And then this will help your employees feel more confident. It'll help them feel like you know what you're doing, or that the business as usual. It's being visible, it's being transparent, it's staying confident and realistic. I like the be realistic one. If you are on Instagram or Facebook or things like that, you see these celebrities who are like, we're in it with you, as they're showing a picture of like their beachfront home, and you're thinking like, no, you're not at all. But when owners and things like that, employees, managers, supervisors, they come and they say, hey, couldn't get my kids to leave me alone today. Like, man, this is hard. It makes you realistic. It makes you human to them. And they say, man, it's not just me. That's so great. You're giving your employees some control over their lives, because honestly, no one has control in a lot of the aspects of their lives right now. You're giving back to the community if you can, and then having this scrappy problem solving thrive mentality of, okay, we can't do this, but we can do this, and then really working on that, because those are the businesses that survive. Again, we're going to return to boundaries here, because I feel like boundaries are one of the most important things to talk about with people who telecommute and are struggling. Poor boundaries leads to burnout. That's the truth of it. If you have bad boundaries, you're going to burn out at work. You're going to be anxious. You may have more depression. You have poor morale at work. So people need to be very clear on the expectations of their employees. Having an office set up, transitions. We all transition, but we don't all realize what we do. So a good transition would be like, okay, I come into my office, I shut my door, I'm dressed professionally. I have, coffee set up. I have, all of my office things near me. And then I log off for the day. I go out of my office. I shut the door. I put on my relaxing clothes. I don't have any access to any of my work materials. I've had some clients who, especially when they struggle with transitions, they go for a walk after work to if they don't have a commute anymore, then it's I'm getting out of the mind. I'm dad now, or I'm a spouse now, or I'm a granddaughter now, or whatever that is. Obviously not encouraging face-to-face meetings when it's not safe to do so. And then demonstrating healthy boundaries between work and home, and then encouraging their employees to do the same. So if you do get an employee that's struggling, having them come up, utilize empathy, explore the root of the stressors. Is this work related? If it's not work related, this is where having the therapists available, and we have resources, and here's warm lines, suicide hotlines, NAMI, therapy, one-on-one. How are you? Something like self-care. Anyone, especially essential workers, should be hitting this self-care super hard right now, because this is your buffer. If you're doing good self-care, you have a much higher chance of coming out of this with a healthy mental state. If you're not doing the self-care, you're putting yourself at risk. So definitely across all of these self-care, realms, be working on these. I sent me a self-care assessment, which she will send you at the end of this. You can take it for yourself. If not, you can share it with your employees. There are going to be some things on there you can't do, like go get a massage or go get drinks with a friend. But there are things on there that you can do in your own house, and then just making sure you're attending to all of these. So again, some more resources for self-care, apps, therapists. You can have a trained therapist video conference with your company if you want to. They have TED Talks, they have webinars. I mean, seriously, it's so accessible. If you just Google self-care, it's all over the place. So now we're returning to a new normal. Post-COVID-19 is not going to look the same as pre-COVID-19. There's going to be changes in how we do business. There's new technology, personnel changes, our strategic plans are out the door. So we need to be figuring out what are we missing now? Investments in cross-training and coaching and building a mentally healthy environment. How are we going to come back from this? But then you have to watch out for some of these pitfalls. Because don't expect your employees to go back to the way they were before. They're not going to have the same performance. Relationships are going to be altered. You have employees that are going to be feeling betrayed or anxious, especially if they were let go. There's uncertainty. You have to understand that some of these employees may be grieving. They may be ill, they may have gotten COVID and have ongoing health issues. So be aware, you're asking them to make another transition, start where they left off. But so you can do things though, like make it a priority to be doing things to increase the connectivity and morale. Offer to debrief. Definitely offer to debrief what worked well, what did not work well, and then what can we learn from this? What needs to be changed? Having this collaborative, we're all in this together mindset makes for a very strong team. Okay, we're back. What are the goals now? Is there something someone else who can do? I've never done marketing, but I'm willing to check it out. I can do committee stuff. I can reach out to past clients. Having this sense of, okay, we're all in this together, it gives people a sense of competency and control that they lost during COVID. So as well as moving a continued connection to the community, hold on to that, because all of these things, all of these ways that these companies, these businesses have been helping their community, people are going to remember that, and they're going to have loyalty to your business. So final points, if you take anything from this, check with your insurance reps regarding mental health benefits. Definitely checking into telehealth. Remember, this is new to all of us. If anything, just try something. Just try. Remember that you promote healthy habits. You promote health by exhibiting healthy habits. And then if any of you have any questions over anything I talked about here, please feel free to reach out to me with questions, concerns. If you want direction to resources, I would be more than happy to provide that for you. And then I'll open it up to Jill if there's any questions that you got during this.
Awesome, Amber. I haven't had any questions yet. Audience, is there any questions that you guys would like to ask Amber? Please type them in the group chat. We'll give you a minute here. Amber, your presentation was outstanding.
Thank you.
Yes, that is awesome, awesome information to keep in mind. So you mentioned that a lot of insurance providers are maybe loosening or upping what is included in insurance. Are you seeing that most are doing that? Include the telehealth?
It depends on the insurance company. I have seen quite a few insurance companies who have moved to, if telehealth was not previously allowed, they have definitely moved to paying, some of them have waived deductibles. Some of them have waived co-insurance. It really depends on the insurance company. I've seen Wellmark has definitely done some of that, as well as Optum. I can't tell much about other companies that might have done it, but definitely worth checking in.
Awesome. One of our attendees is saying this was very informative. Thank you. Our insurance does cover and waives deductibles. That's awesome.
I see that. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, another question. Can you talk about warning signs that an employer might look for in their employees that are struggling?
This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to answer it from two different perspectives. So if we're looking at essential workers, people that you're going to still be seeing face to face, I would look for changes in behavior. They may be more standoffish, they may be more irritable, they may just look like they're tired, they're not taking care of themselves. Um, you may notice them staring off into the distance, but not really looking or attending to anything. Those are signs that they're dissociating, which means that they're overwhelmed or they're not doing well. Also, if you hear them just a negative kind of way of speaking and that they just seem to be annoyed by everything or they're irritated, that's definitely a sign that they're getting overwhelmed. If you're looking from the perspective of telecommuters, that's why I like seeing companies who are using Zoom or Microsoft Teams, so they're seeing their employees face to face. How's their hygiene? How are they communicating? Do they seem like they're the same? Are they logging in late? Are they logging out early? Are they not getting things done? Do they seem like, when you talk to them, do they seem like they're drinking? How are you hearing about, their relationships at home? It's a lot harder to see the warning signs when they're telecommuting because you're not getting all of this feedback you would get if they were face to face, but you can still, if you have good relationships with your employees, this would be a lot easier to find out.
Awesome. Amber, I got one question. One more question. I know this is about workplace, but can we talk just real quickly about kids that, are now part of our workplace and they're doing school in a different way? Are there any particular warning signs that we need to be watching out for in the kids that are not, they are isolated from their friends and being thrown into doing school in a very different way, which for some is exciting. For others, I'm sure it is causing anxiety. So what do we look for in kids?
Absolutely. It's going to depend on the age group. I noticed that, especially in the people that I know that work with uh, kids in the hospital setting, there's been a lot more, I'd say, intakes and things like that due to like suicide attempts and things like that. So you have to, again, watch for change in behavior. Kids, I've noticed, they're actually they seem to be engaging in like regressive behaviors. So biting, yelling, aggressive. They may be saying their stomach hurts a lot. Adults have a wide range of language. They can say, I'm uncomfortable, I feel anxious, or I'm worried. Kids don't really have that language. So they respond more in their behavior. They communicate. So just watching for a change in behavior. If they seem more irritable, if they seem like they can't sleep, if they seem like they can't focus, or they're more quick to anger, that's a pretty good indication that they're struggling with things, and that would probably warrant a good conversation between parent and child. Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can help you with? And then just remembering that they need some soothing too. So spending a little more face-to-face time, getting them outside, making sure that they're eating, they're getting enough water, they're got adequate health, like intake, food, and just making sure that they're getting some exercise because we're missing PE class, obviously. So, and if you have any concerns, definitely reaching out to like their primary care doc.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll do one more call for questions before we wrap up. I am not seeing any remaining questions. Amber, thank you so much for all of the excellent mental health information you've provided us today. As you mentioned throughout your presentation, employees are facing uncertainty, perhaps anxiety due to being placed in new work and family environments, and everything you presented can help us work through those things. So thank you again. I also want to thank our participants.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I want to thank our participants in today's meeting. Just as a quick reminder, we have Q&A with Scott Swenson from the Small Business Development Center again this Friday at 1:30. And next Tuesday, we'll be back with Ask a Banker with Hills Bank. So if you have questions regarding any of the assistance programs, either at the state or local levels, you can jump on those calls and get the most up-to-date information. again, if you have specific questions or concerns with our topic today, mental health in the workplace or in your home, with your family, whatever, please, please, please reach out to Amber Hoff. She's an awesome Marion Chamber member, also gives a lot back to the community. She's one of our ambassadors. So she wears the red coats, helps with ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings, and it's kind of one of our faces of the chamber. So we really appreciate her. With that said, we are adjourned. I hope everyone has a great day and hope to see you all very soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Jill.